So I talked to my OB and just asked her, you've seen me now with two other pregnancies, and do you think that I'm a good candidate to do a home birth or a water birth? And she told me, yeah. She encouraged me, and because I want to say 20 weeks or something like that, it's pretty far along. She told me that it was important that I went ahead and jumped on that ship so that I could start getting good care. And that's when I came and met you guys.
Early on when we found out we were pregnant, I personally was terrified at the thought of being pregnant because in my mind, oh, that's going to mean doctor's visits and being in a hospital and just scared me. But coming to the birth center and talking to Cynthia and just having her give us sort of the layout of a community birth, and it felt right and felt safe. And from then on, it's like all my worries and fears were just lifted, and the whole process was a really great experience, I think. Yeah.
I was going to see initially an OBGYN, but he was not meeting my needs and expectations that I had. And I still was on the fence of having an OBGYN. I still wanted that home birth.
And that the hospital is the right place to go. That's where the professionals are. And that's just the given place where you have to have your babies. And I was nervous that that's the hospital, the traditional hospital is where all the right equipment is, it's where all the expertise resides. And Dr. Quinn Medicine Women is the only place where you see people give birth outside a hospital. But
it wasn't until we came to the birth center and had such a intimate, personal, open, and helpful experience right away that decision became very clear.
So I did research, I watched documentaries, I called, and I ended up choosing you guys.
Out of 4 kids, I don't think it's even really close. I think we gained friends out of that experience. We gained stories our walls can tell in our house that nobody else's can, and it's incredible.
My name is Diana Miller, and I'm a licensed midwife. I'm also the mother to 6 kids. Some of them were born here in the birth center. All of them have been born out of the hospital, and I became a licensed midwife and joined this practice a year ago.
My name is Cynthia Jaffe. I am 62 years old, and I've been a midwife for about 30 of those years.
I grew up in a culture of out-of-hospital birth and community birth. I'm the oldest of 11 children and saw my brothers and sisters born at home. But it wasn't until I experienced midwifery care in my own pregnancies that I realized that this is something that is a calling, something I felt really passionate about. I felt so empowered and cared for by the experience of being with a midwife during pregnancy and during delivery that I knew this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So.
So my name is Walisha, and I am 28 years old. I'm a mother of 4. I've had 2 hospital births and 2 home births.
I'm a mom of 2. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I am from the Midwest.
Cindy.
I'm Kevin.
and baby Liam.
My name is Amy McInerney.
I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Sam.
And my husband Tanner and I are first-time parents, and we had our son Hank at the Community Birth Center.
And we had our baby here at the Greenbank Birth Center.
Yeah, my name's Nathaniel Mouse. This is my wife Mandy.
And we have 4 children together. 3 of them were born in a hospital, and our 4th one was born at home.
With the first one, I was 21 years old. It was my first baby. So I feel like I just did kind of the normal thing.
You pee on a stick, and you're pregnant, and so you call an OB, and you go to the hospital, and you have a baby.
And the process of finding out we were pregnant, which was absolutely terrifying and completely unplanned, and kind of like this a week of just shock and awe.
I just kind of always knew that I didn't want to have a baby in a hospital. Obviously, if there was a reason to, I would do that, but I didn't feel like having a baby was an illness, first of all, and I've mainly been in hospitals to see relatives and friends who had injuries or health issues, and even though it's like a really important place to get medical treatment, it's not somewhere that I feel super comfortable. So I just knew always in my heart that if I had an eventful pregnancy, that I would rather have my baby somewhere that I felt comfortable and where I knew the people around me. That was really important to me.
I found out I was pregnant, went to the local hospital, and never left the hospital, it seems. Constantly just went to my regular appointments that were once a month, and then, the every 2 weeks, and then every week. Things went pretty smoothly. I had some type of desire to do a water birth because it always interested me, but I didn't have the confidence. So I just stayed. Sorry. So I just stuck to the hospital and never even thought twice about it.
Because my family and my husband were not educated about home births or birthing center births, and they were more or less scared of anything happening. So we all decided that it would be best if I had a hospital birth.
I think the hospital you think is the safe pick, and having 4 kids now, our first child we had at a hospital, and our doctor that we met with day in and day out wasn't the doctor that ended up delivering our baby. Mm-hmm. And we never saw the room where we were going to give birth beforehand. So actually everything about it was really weird.
It was fine. It was the first place we'd been. We took a tour, signed up for their personal tour, and a nurse spent about 20 minutes with us walking through the facility, and it's perfectly lovely and updated, and it was a perfectly nice facility. The staff seemed friendly, and to be frank, if it's the only option we've had seen, it would have been fine.
The hospital birth went okay, but it was not what I planned. I was hooked up to a machine, and I couldn't move around like I wanted to, and they were forcing me, after being there for about 7-8 hours, to have a C-section if I didn't give birth within the next hour or 2.
We got to the hospital at an early hour, probably 6 a.m., and the hospital doors were locked. We couldn't get in the hospital, and there was nobody there. There was a button to push that rang to somebody's desk, and nobody answered. So we were locked out of the hospital.
We literally got a voicemail.
We got
trying to get in the front doors of the hospital.
My second pregnancy, with my second birth, my little one got really sick at 2 weeks, and we took her to the ER off island and found out that she had viral meningitis, and that she had got it from the hospital. And from there, we were just kind of like, oh, the hospital's dirty. What are we thinking?
And a janitor happened to see us and let us in. When we got back to the birth center at the hospital, they told us that we needed to register before they could admit us or before they could call my midwife to let us know we were in labor. And we didn't pass any working staff on our way back to the birth center. So my husband had to leave me laboring by myself in a room for 20 minutes while he tracked down somebody to register us and get us admitted into the hospital.
Both of us have had quite a bit of experience being in hospitals, just with family issues in our past, and both of us don't really like hospitals in general, so that's definitely a big selling point for us, right?
Yeah.
There's all those sick people there. There's all these people with all these illnesses, all these diseases, and I'm bringing my tiny little baby into this world, in this place that, you think is the safest place ever, when you never know really what could be there or what the doctors or nurses have. So,
and when he finally got back, he had to have me sign a paper and then take that paper back to the registration desk before they would admit us. And so I was left for about 30 minutes to labor on my own. And they would not let me use a gown. They would not start the tub for me. They would not call my midwife. She wouldn't even check me to see how far dilated I was. So after we got all registered, my husband was back in the room. She checked me. I was at 5 centimeters. They called my midwife and they started the tub. And the tub was down the hall. So I labored in the hall while they filled the tub. And then my husband and I were just left there waiting for our midwife to show up. She was there pretty quickly, I would say 10 or 15 minutes, but I started to feel like I needed to push while I was in the tub. So I also had to go pee really bad. So we got out of the tub and headed back to the room so that I could pee. And I thought that I was getting close to being able to push and that I was close to being fully dilated. When I got back to the bed, my midwife is there and she checked me and I was still only at 5 centimeters, which was really defeating for me emotionally at that point. I didn't feel like I had the energy to walk back down to get into the tub or to do anything else at that point but get an epidural. We called for an anesthesiologist who was over 30 minutes away. And when I realized that he might not make it before the baby was born, I felt like I lost complete control of my ability to cope with contractions. My husband was doing everything he could, and my midwife just kind of sat on the sidelines and watched me suffer. By the time the anesthesiologist was there was also a nurse shift change. So we had 2 nurses leaving and 2 nurses coming. There was 4 nurses in the room, my midwife, an anesthesiologist, and his assistant. It felt chaotic and crazy.
I got to a point where I was tired of having to tell everybody my story over and over. Every appointment, I was having to tell them, okay, this started off as twins, we lost one, and this is where we're at now. It was too much. I began to get really frustrated. I felt like I was just a medical record number. Like nobody cared about me. No one cared to read my charts prior to bringing me back into the room. I felt like they were in it for the money. Nobody cared about me.
I had one nurse holding me down so that the anesthesiologist could clean my back, and he wasn't even prepared to clean my back. She just was pinning me down on the bed, and I could start to feel the baby crowning. I was sitting on my baby's head screaming that I needed to push, and nobody was listening. So as soon as the anesthesiologist put the needle in, I lay back and pushed my baby out in one big push.
Both my parents were sick for a long time, so just in and out of the hospital constantly, and so I cringe every time I have to, go into a hospital. So we knew right away that it wasn't the plan that we wanted to go if we could avoid it. So
it was, I guess, the fear of having another sick baby from the hospital that scared us and kind of gave us that little push to then look into some type of alternative care.
I knew that if we ever had another baby again, which I couldn't imagine it at that point, but I knew if we did it again, that I would never go to a hospital.
So I did research, I watched documentaries, I called.
I was actually following lots of social media accounts. So mostly Instagram, I would say. I kind of flooded my Instagram account.
And I wanted to make sure that I liked you guys first. And so I came and sat in at my friend's appointment, and you guys were just open and honest and caring, and it felt like you guys cared about us. Like we weren't just a paycheck or just a medical record number. Like we were women getting ready to have birth who needed people that cared about us, and you guys did that.
You don't always get, especially with medical practitioners. Sometimes everything always just feels really rushed and chaotic, and I think here it just felt like you guys really got to know us, and
to feel really safe and comfortable with everyone that was going to be present at my birth, and to know who was going to be present at my birth.
Cynthia, we had Diana every single time for every single appointment, and we definitely recognized where we delivered our baby. It was in our living room, and it was Cynthia and it was Diana there to deliver it, and it was amazing.
Yeah, she was a lot bigger, like 9 pounds, 2 ounces. That's really big. I didn't expect to have a baby that big, but I did. I felt like if I can have a natural birth, a natural home birth, unmedicated, and a 9-pound baby, I feel like I can take on the world. Like I can do anything, because it wasn't easy.
It is not the easy or pain-free option.
There's no way to say that was easy. Like that was one of the, it was really hard.
But I trusted Cynthia and Diana and their assistant.
You guys knew that I needed to do those different movements to get my baby out, down and out. And so I feel like in a hospital, even if I was able to have a natural labor without a monitor and an epidural and all that, I don't think people there would be used to doing that, to saying, oh, gee, I think you need to do a lunge with one of your feet on like a riser, So that those tools wouldn't have been available to me at a hospital. And I feel like that was a huge part of what made me able to have the birth experience that I had hoped for.
it was like 2 angels standing over us while the whole thing was happening. And even the follow-up with, the going to the hospital with us.
Yeah, I think just going above and beyond.
Yeah.
So the fact that meeting with us when little guy here had to go into the hospital, it seemed, I don't know what we would have done without Diana being there, so it was incredible.
Yeah.
So
We always joke about wanting a cardboard cutout of you in our house.
I like to call Cynthia and Diana the dream team. I have friends who have had just Cynthia at their delivery, and I have friends who've had just Diana at their delivery, and they all have wonderful things to say. I feel honored that we got to have both in our delivery, and that they were the ones caring for me, not just for my delivery, but the whole prenatal package and postnatal package was amazing. I've never had somebody ask me what I ate for breakfast and actually care, or explain nutrition and pregnancy for an hour and answer questions. I never knew why I had to pee in a cup every time I went to the clinic for an OB. I just put my cup in the same window as everybody else and on with my appointment. But here at the birth center, Cynthia and Diana answered all my questions and shared their wisdom with me. Instead of caring for me, they kind of taught me how to care for myself. And they believed in me, and they believed my body could do what it was meant to do. And I think that that was the biggest benefit to me experiencing a community birth.
The biggest benefit to me and my family from our home water birth, I would say, is the closeness that it gave us. No relationship is perfect by any means. And previously, with the deliveries that I had in the hospital, the doctors were so, I want to say controlling. They drove the entire thing. Nothing was led by me. So I just followed along. And from there, my husband didn't have a place where he fit in, because it was doctors and nurses doing everything, me delivering the baby, and my husband just there. Just a community birth in general, whether it's at home or at the clinic, there are so many luxuries to that you don't think of when you're thinking of what most would consider a traditional birth and what they see in the movies about going to the hospital. Actually, a lot of that really sucks for the dad. It sucks for the mom too, but from the dad's point of view,
The hospital is not the ideal spot for you to have your kiddo. I mean, you are at best sleeping on a futon, and at best you get to hold your baby maybe in the first hour. I mean, that's probably best case scenario, and I'm not sure if I got to hold any of our first 3 hospital-born children within the first hour. I don't think so. And again, I'm working with mostly strangers the entire time, and they don't know who I am. They don't know who the dad is, so they're not helping me integrate into the birth story and partnering with me to partner with my wife to have this amazing child, an amazing experience.
But one of the biggest benefits we saw as a result of this experience was obviously the relationships that were forged throughout the pregnancy with the Greenbank Birth Center team. That all of those relationships that we spent months and months building came to fruition and were like very positive and successful on the day of labor and delivery. But even more so, what resulted for Tanner and I has been even more lasting. The fact that we got to go through this experience together in such an intimate way was so important that, the fact that he was able to witness me in such a powerful way, and then the fact that he also got to participate in our son's birth in such a real way. I can't say enough about the positive things that come to a marriage or a partnership after having been through those experiences together.
I think too that our kids gained a lot because they got to come out and meet their brother seconds after he was born, and before his cord was even cut. And then Cynthia came in and gave them a lesson on the placenta, and they got to learn something that they would have never got from an OB in the hospital. The OB in the hospital would have been out of the room before they were even allowed to come in. They got to be there for his first feeding. They got to pick out his first outfit out of his dresser, and they got to lay in bed and snuggle with him all day, which there was no visiting hours. The whole experience of our family, it wasn't just me having a baby, it was our family welcoming new life into our home.
Birth is a family thing, and having midwives and a home delivery brought it back to being a family thing. It wasn't just a medical thing anymore. So you guys gave us a lot.
If you don't have medical complications, just stay away from the hospital if you can. There's no need. And I mean, there's absolutely a need and a reason for there to be hospitals and OBGYNs, and they save lives and save babies and do amazing things. But if you have a normal pregnancy and a normal birth, it's just not the place to do it, is my opinion. I'm just I watch, so many of our friends have pretty rough experiences with birth there, and it's doesn't make it easy to do it here, to do it with, community birth center type situation, but it makes it peaceful and positive. We just had such a positive experience with it. And I feel there's just, I don't know, I mean, I haven't done studies, but it's just the correlations in just our group of friends is so strong for if you want a positive, peaceful birth experience and you have a healthy, low-risk pregnancy, don't go to the hospital, So that's my experience with it.
I have family members who have chosen to do hospital births after our experience, and it's each person's own decision, and I completely support that. But I do want people to know that there are other choices. I'm a huge advocate for natural birth and for community births, and so I share my experience and let them know that they can make up their own mind. But I know for us, I'm not sure that somebody could have talked me into it with our first baby, but I know that the series of events that took place in our life and in our birth stories led us to a home birth, and I just have to hope that other people will have experiences that open their eyes to see that having a baby at home or at a birth center really is a beautiful and amazing privilege.
think, like Diana, my own births motivated me. I was pregnant and had children in the Middle East, where my husband and I were living, and the standard of care is midwifery. And so I had midwives. There wasn't really a choice. And with my first child, the midwife that delivered my son became a good friend of mine, and then was able to be there for the delivery of my daughter. And I just felt so called to her, to hearing her stories, and just thinking, gosh, if I could do that, that would be the best thing in my life. And she really helped me, and I was able to assist a midwife for a while, and then went to school and graduated 30 years ago.
So I went to school to get my degree in midwifery at the Midwives College of Utah, and it's a minimum of a 5-year program. It's one of those programs where you can stretch it out or you can shorten it up depending on how hard you work. But and then there's also the clinical aspect. And so Washington State does have pretty rigorous clinical requirements to be a midwife, to be a licensed midwife. It's a minimum of 100 births, and usually that takes a good 2 years of working in a clinical setting, attending births, and you generally, I'd say most midwives attend a lot more births than that by the time they become a midwife. And then there's just the training that we have to do alongside of that, which is like neonatal resuscitation and different classes that we have to take to become licensed midwives.
Yes, I think there is a misconception about safety issues. We are well trained, but our goal is that during prenatal care, we'll actually identify women who may not do well. So we spend an hour with each woman every prenatal visit, just making sure she is staying in that low risk category. If a woman is found to have twins or develops high blood pressure, we certainly find them another care provider at a higher level of care, usually in a hospital. And so by the end, we have a single baby who's head down with a healthy mom, and the risks of things going wrong are very low. But our training is such that we carry the same drugs and medication to treat something like a hemorrhage after birth that you would get in a hospital. And most of our schooling is training us for those outlying events, and also to recognize when a woman veers off the course of low risk. And so we feel very confident in the women that we end up delivering, that we've done our job well, and so we feel confident that we're equipped to handle what might come up. I also think that in the hospital, many of the things that healthy low-risk women are subjected to, things like continuous fetal monitoring, IVs, no eating and drinking, those actually cause more problems than they solve. And so what we say is in a hospital, they don't differentiate between low-risk and high-risk women. Everybody gets that high-risk treatment. And confining a healthy woman to a bed, not letting her eat and drink, sticking her with needles, I mean, those are all things that can contribute to her having more anxiety, a less fulfilling experience, more fear is involved. And so because we identify these women as low risk, we can treat them as such, and so allow them to move and walk around and monitor them intermittently.
I think one of the other things that is unique about home birth and our birth center birth is that we do offer water birth. That's not something that's available in most hospitals. And so we rent out tubs, and we have a big tub at the birth center, and we call it the midwife's epidural because it is such a relaxing experience to get into a tub full of warm water. And we have done many, many water births. It's something that we are very glad that we can do, to offer that to women, and it is very helpful.
The thing that's important to most midwives is something called collaborative care, that we believe that our clients need to meet us 50-50, that we're just not going to make decisions for them. And we sometimes primarily see ourselves as educators. We want to give them all the information about an upcoming test. We want them to come back with their questions, and then we want to decide as a unit which way to go. There are certainly tests that we feel like are important, but we respect women's right to choose, and to choose not to do them if they don't want them. And I think that the fact that we spend an hour with each woman every visit is different. We really want to know about their families. We want to know about what's bothering them. We want to know if they're anxious. Do they need services outside what we can provide? getting them hooked up with those if possible. So we feel like the healthier in mind, body, and spirit she is when she delivers, that's good for us, because that makes her birth easier and more fulfilling.
Since the beginning of time, women have been doing this. I mean, your grandmother, your mother, every woman before you was created with everything that we need to be able to safely bring a child into this world, whether that's with a midwife, whether it's at home with just your family members, or in a hospital. But overall, I would definitely recommend trying it naturally before getting any type of medical interventions, because you never know how strong you are until being strong is your only option. And with having a natural delivery, definitely at home, you've got to be strong. So you use every bit of strength that is instilled within you to bring that baby into this world. And from there, it takes every bit of strength that you have to continue to survive and take care of that child and do a good job. So this was the right choice. And I hope that other women, can take this road and fill themselves out and let themselves be empowered by making the choice to have a home birth.
My name is Diana Miller, and I'm a licensed midwife.
My name is Cynthia Jaffe, and I'm a licensed midwife, and we are the midwives at the Greenbank Birth Center.
So whether you're a first-time mom or you've had children before, whether you've experienced hospital births or community births, we'd love to meet you and talk about what we have to offer here. You're welcome to call or email us, and we have a 1-hour consult that we do where we just go over your options and get to know you.